Hey, what's up, Brian? Hey, everybody, this is Coach Kurt and girl Brian, and you're on mute.
I'm already fucking up already. Here we go. Okay, there
All
you
right, it's all right. So, yeah, back again with the Fight House Talks podcast. We're going to be talking with Coach Danny Terrell. Brian, you got anything going on specific that you want to talk about before we bring him on? Or
Just to let everybody know that we're lining November's list up. We got a lot of interesting assorted characters in the martial arts world that are coming on. I think you'll enjoy the content we're going to present in November. We're still rolling on with the episodes until we can't anymore. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
sweet. Well, I'm going to bring on Coach Danny, and let's get this going. Coach Danny, what's going on, man?
Hey, Coach Danny.
There we go.
Nice to be here.
You can put Coach Danny in the middle, put me in the outside.
Let me do that. How about that? That works. We got there we go. So, Coach Danny, I mean, you've been on a number of podcasts, but let's do this thing. You want to explain who you are to the world because we have a different audience, but let's tell a story of who you are and where you came from, sir.
Well, I'm from Louisiana, South Louisiana. I've been in the martial arts for most of my life. I started boxing when I was 11. Did a little bit of wrestling. Started Shotokan when I was 14. Got a black belt in Shotokan. Don't do anything with that anymore. The instructor that I had was a ex ranger. Went to work for the state police. Became a state police defense tactics instructor. And so his big thing was fighting. I want to teach you how to fight. So we did lots of fighting. Shotokan is really big on katas. And so he taught us 3 katas. He said, I'm not worried about you learning how to air dance. I want you to know how to fight. So we banged a whole lot more than we ever did katas. I think there's like 26 you're supposed to know, but I'm probably the worst one that ever is for kata because I don't know them all. And his thing was we would do some drills and we would spar. Then he said, go back and find those moves in your katas. Instead of him showing us what they were, his thing was go find them. And I appreciated him doing that years later because then I could look at what somebody else did and understood the body mechanics and what was going on, what was possible within that movement. From there, I went to high school and did high school things, football and baseball and all that. And from there, I went into the service. Had some incidents in the service and learned to play with those things and how to survive. Part of the training that I had when I was in the service, we had several guys that were in the martial arts, and we would get together and play Goju-Ryu, Taekwondo, Hapkido, and in playing with those guys, there were a lot of stuff that we threw out because we were on a road for efficiency and something that we could use possibly next week or even tomorrow versus something that you would have to play with for 2 or 3 months before getting good at it. So we kind of watered that stuff out. And funny enough, most of it came back to looking more like boxing or kickboxing than any of the other stuff. So once I got out of the military, I went to college and then started a family. And my kids were 5 years old, and we put them into a martial arts school. And I found out that the instructor that was there was someone that I had trained with when we were in Shotokan. So I got back into it at that point. Started training Wing Chun. And when I first started training Wing Chun, I was like, this is not very good. This is bullshit, to be honest with you. But he encouraged me to continue with it. So I did. And as I grew into it, I began to realize that there was a lot of it, if trained properly, when used properly at the right time, it's excellent stuff. And in 1989, I think it was, I went to a seminar in Arkansas, and Francis Fong was there doing the seminar and just blew me away totally. And I said, that I want to learn. But it was several years before I was able to actually start training with him and get with him. So just kind of put it on the back burner. But at least it piqued my interest, and I wanted to look at it. When I was in the service, when I was in the Philippines, I saw guys stick fighting.
Okay.
I did not train it or anything, and I didn't really look into it, but I really thought those guys were nuts, swinging sticks at each other, So, but I saw it, and it was several years later when I met a guy by the name of Omar Hakim. He was in New Orleans, and I had a friend of mine that invited me to go to do a seminar with them. And I said, yeah, what we're going to do? He said, we're going to do Kali. And what is that? Well, just come. It's a Filipino martial art. I said, okay. Well, we got there and we got sticks. And I said, well, that's very similar to what those guys were doing out when I was with them in the field. And so I started training with Omar, and that's how I got into the Filipino martial arts. I met, like I said, Francis Fong, and then in 1992, I started training directly under him. And under Francis, he introduced me to both Guru Dan and Arjun Chai Sirasud, and he said, if you want to really grow, then you need to train under these two guys as well. And so shortly after that, I started training under them, and I've been with them forever. And I think it was around 2010, one of my students who had actually been training with me for a long time was started training with Erik Paulson. And he said, man, you need to come see this guy. And I said, yeah, I know Erik is good, and go train with him and bring back whatever you have. And he kept saying you need to train with him. And so finally 2 years later, I went and trained with him. I said, you know what? I'm training with this guy. And so I've been training with Erik ever since. And other than that, it's just been a journey of a lot of different martial arts, and with really good world-class instructors who have taken a liking to me, fortunately, and continue to work with me.
Awesome. So, go ahead, Brian.
No, I wasn't saying anything. Something happened with the computer. It's fine. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So Jack Latour says hi.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is it's really funny that everybody starts at some point either with Taekwondo or Shotokan Karate.
I was going to say that, yeah.
I mean, I have a black belt in Shotokan, and I can't tell you how many people that I've met that have some form of black belt from either the ITF with Taekwondo or Shotokan Karate, and also with like luminaries within the FMA community. I mean, there's so many of the GMs that do, like GM Bobby, for example, has a black belt in Shotokan.
Yeah, there was nothing. There was Taekwondo here, but that was Shotokan Taekwondo was the only thing that was in South Louisiana, or at least in my area. And of course, as a young man, not having transportation or a way to get around, you take what you can get.
Yeah.
Or what your parents allow you to do. So we took Shotokan. My mother didn't want me to take anything at all. She was, there's no need to. And my father was said, why? Why do you feel that you need to do that? And it was something that I've always enjoyed doing. I had an older brother that was autistic, and he got picked on a lot when he was in school. And so I got into lots of scrapes and stuff, and it finally got to the point where, if I'm going to continue to do this, as foolish as it is, I need to be able to fight properly. So that's why I wanted to take boxing. And then I had several of my friends that were doing boxing.
Yep.
And it's sort of been a life's journey ever since.
What's interesting is like a generational thing where non-millennials, everybody before millennials, grew up fighting, and it was acceptable, it was encouraged, it was just a natural part of culture. And I think I'm like the very beginning of the millennial, I don't know, I'm in that weird gap where you start to see that transition away from having to deal with physical confrontation up to a level that it was acceptable. And now it's just, you can't do anything. You get punished for it. And I don't know. I'm of the opinion that we're not better for that. So
I agree. You know, we had in South Louisiana, boxing was in the schools.
Yeah.
Through
Yep.
the 50s and into the early 60s. And it was taken out of school just as I was getting into school. But so all of those coaches that were coaching boxing at the time, and there was lots of people. New Iberia High School was a powerhouse as far as boxing goes throughout the South at that time. So all those coaches opened up gyms.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden we had, instead of the high schools and the elementary schools having boxing, we had 7 or 8 boxing gyms in our little town, and we had 20,000 people in our town because there was that many people that actually was boxing at the time.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Interesting you're talking about the karate, like being everybody I know, with the exception of me, I never did karate at all. I never studied it or even got interested in it. But a lot of people I know, they first start out in is karate and taekwondo. It's like the first thing, I guess, you like get your shit wet the first time. You know, you want to learn karate. That's like the first thing everybody goes to. Even around here where I live at, there's something with karate dojos there. So I understand what's like a big foundation or a base for people that are getting started in any kind of arts.
Well, I think a lot of it, like in my case, being at the end of the baby boomers, the guys in World War II that was in Japan after the occupation of Japan and everything, they learned and brought it back.
Yep.
And so there was a mystique behind it.
Mm.
And then, of course, as it started growing in some of the movies and stuff, it made it even more so. So because it was different from boxing, people wanted something different.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Do you feel like that's happening again? But I mean, we're all have a background of FMA here. Do you think that's actually happening again now with FMA, with dealing with the mystique of a foreign system in the U.S. that hasn't had a lot of I mean, there's been some exposure, but not to the extent of that karate, kempo, and kung fu has had.
Well, I mean, FMA has been here for a long time. You know, the Filipinos have been in the United States for a long time on the West Coast, in southern part of Mississippi, Louisiana, with all of the sugarcane that we have down here. That was actually brought in originally was done by the Filipinos.
Oh, let alone like with Hawaii and California as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there was a large influence already. Jean Lafitte, who was one of the pirates that we had that actually helped us during the War of 1812.
Mm-hmm.
Most of his crew was Filipino.
Yep.
And so that influence was already here, and people were doing things, but most of it at the time was only with their own people. They weren't helping train and teach other people outside of their own communities. I think that a lot of the masters, you know, the greatest part of any of the martial arts today is either here in the United States or in Europe. Mm-hmm. There's far more that is being done now to grow it. And why? Because that's where most of the masters have come to.
Yep. But as for like being in the cultural zeitgeist as a pop culture feature, FMA still has yet to have its due. Because I mean, thanks to Bruce Lee, this is the reason why we have martial arts in the West as we see it now. I really wonder if it's not a matter of if. I just wonder when and how FMA can be as well known, let alone as popular as some of these other legacy martial arts in the U.S., let alone the West. Because we see it everywhere, we just don't have a name for it.
I think that it's not going to happen until it becomes a primary art for people to have that as a primary school.
Yep.
And in order to do that, it has to be a business.
Yep.
And I think there's a reluctance for a lot of really good instructors to make it a business. And if you really want to have a growth in the Filipino martial arts, I think it has to be a business. And in order for it to be a business, you have to codify it. You have to have a curriculum, and you have to make it so that it's easy to pass on to others. And the way that it's set up now, for the most part, that of which I've seen, because I haven't seen all of it by any means. I'm not, but it's hard to pass it on to the masses.
Yeah.
A lot more is on an individual basis or small groups.
Absolutely. So with that, because there's typically two different routes for three typical routes we see with the FMA community as a business model. You have people who actually have a dedicated facility, a gym. You see the seminar route, and then you see like the guest instructor in another school, and that's not their business. And the smallest faction is like the dedicated schools of FMA. And it's really interesting to see like how like people approach FMA, and especially outside looking in as like a parent going to a martial arts academy. People can rationalize punching and kicking, doing dedicated kata and partner drills where there's no striking per se of the individual. When you start throwing weapons into the mix, parents are like, oh no, can't do that. Which is odd because we throw kids in boxing, Muay Thai, and MMA schools. So
King Jowers is, but I'm going to interrupt real quick. He brought up a good point.
Yeah.
Exactly what he just said right now is what I get from people every time I bring this up. Knives, sticks. I either get, oh, I don't want to do that, or that has no value for me on the street. I'm not going to teach me anything. Fantasy. So I think he hit the nail on the head when he just he left that comment on there.
Yeah, I think that it's an unnatural act for most people to punch somebody else.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's an even more natural act to take a stick and beat someone over the head. However, what is the most primeval thing within us?
Hitting people with a stick and hitting them in the
head with it.
Yep.
And we subdue that primeval aspect. Don't poke somebody's eye out with that thing.
Yeah.
Keep your hands to yourself.
And and I think that we hover over our kids too much. We overprotect our kids too much. Kids are going to break something, and so we say we stop them from breaking something because it's valuable to us. Well, you just stopped an experiment with a kid. He just learned that that's going to break and there's a consequence to it. Well, you just stopped it. If you stop them from being able to play and tussle and have fun, and males for the most part work to have a pecking order.
Yep.
Males learn how to have fun physically by playing physical.
Yep.
Go outside, make a sword, swing a stick, beat up the demons, have fun.
Yep.
And we've taken that away from them. We have kids that come into our schools, and when I say school, I'm talking about martial arts schools. We have to teach them how to touch other kids because they have been regulated all their life about you don't touch anybody else or you're going to get punished. And so they're like squeamish, not even, they're afraid to touch other people. So one of the first things that we teach them to do is wrestle because you can't wrestle without touching someone. And most male boys, I mean, they love to wrestle. It's amazing how every year over the past 10 years, I get a new generation of kids coming in, and it's harder and harder and harder to actually get them to wrestle because they have been indoctrinated for so long not to touch anybody else.
Yeah, I just did a bunch of video work that's proving this point exactly about getting kids okay to hit each other in the proper context, because keep your hands to yourself, consent of contact, which they're important life things about social contracts, but when you're doing the damn thing, you got to do the damn thing. So
so that I think that's part of the problem. So now you turn around and you put a stick in their hand, and everybody's like, "Oh, can't have that." So
you're gonna hurt them. You're gonna kill them. Yeah.
So we start our kids off with pool noodles. And we start them off with wrestling, give them a pool noodle, and we make them do wrestling drills by having to race to cross the floor to get a pool noodle to beat the other guy up. So we'll make them do rolls to get the noodles on the other side of the room to beat up the other guys. We'll make them do shrimping or whatever, crab walking, the physical drills that they need to have the strength to be able to do the wrestling and jiu-jitsus and other stuff. We make them do those drills across the room to pick up a noodle to beat everybody else up with the pool noodles. So they learn early that they're getting their reps in, and they're learning, hey, I can pick them up and hit them with that pool noodle. And then we advance them to a soft stick, and they're beating each other up with soft sticks. And then we start doing drills with them with collie sticks, and then give them soft sticks again and let them spar. So we have kids that are 6, 7, 8 years old that are banging with soft sticks. Now we don't give them the rattan sticks until they get up to 8, 9, 10, and then we'll start let them tap. I don't want to hurt anybody, but it doesn't bother me when somebody gets hurt. And some people are not that way, Yeah.
It's funny you were talking about the kids thing, because remember the first time you came to my house when you were teaching Zane those movements with the knife, and he was kind of like, he didn't want to touch you. He was like scared. Remember, you're like, grab me. So because he was like, I didn't want to touch him or hit him, because if I did, I think he was going to hit me harder. I'm like, well, of course he is. I'm teaching you. You know what I mean? So I agree with what you're saying. The kids are indoctrinated. They don't want to. Now, my youngest son, like, I don't think he's indoctrinated, because he's kneed me in the nuts plenty of times that I've been in bed and jumped up the fucking top rope, and then he was younger and bam, flying right on my nuts. He likes to wrestle. He likes to roughhouse more than the other kids. So I think he's perfect for that. Just that up. But the same thing with the weapons, though, because he's like, I told him that with the weapons. Well, I can't do that. I'll go to jail. This is for the toy weapon. I'll go to jail if I do that to somebody, because he's indoctrinated. People, the teachers, I haven't told him that, but the teachers have told him that so much. Like, you touch somebody, you're going to get suspended. You're going to get, thrown in jail if you use it. So yeah, I understand where we're coming from. We're talking about the indoctrination of the kids nowadays. It's maybe you should tie a piece of raw steak to those kids next time when they they get dragged a tube behind them, and
I understand, when my kids came up, I didn't want them fighting at school, but you're going to defend yourself, and you have the right to defend yourself. And I think as fathers, as husbands, our responsibility is to be able to defend our families, and to teach our families and our young males how to be able to defend themselves and their families eventually. Fighting should be the absolute last resort. You should be able to use your brain and your mouth to talk to people and communicate. You should be able to use body language to communicate, and all that's part of it. But you don't learn how to do that without doing it. And by the time that these kids that are on Facebook all the time, or just do texting and verbiage, they don't learn facial expressions. They don't learn body language. They don't learn voice inflection. So they don't know how to handle it.
I think the problem we run into is the consequence of failing to be able to do the nonverbal cues, the physical verbal cues, and the physical movement to prevent physical contact is this issue is contact. But it goes the other way around, because the indoctrination of kids aren't taught critically how to deal with various stages of confrontation. So they end up meeting every bit of confrontation with an disproportionate level of physical response, because they haven't learned, again, how to use their mouth, how to use their body, and mitigate the physical consequence of their actions.
The kids now they aren't taught to fight anymore. Just pull a gun. I don't know how many shootings happened last week here. We've had 2 here where we were caught bullying and fighting at a house party resulted in not guys throwing it out in the backyard. Automatic weapon, shoot this guy. And it's because of video games. A lot of video games now, it's like Call of Duty and other ones. It's always showing gun violence. Pull out the gun. Gun is the solution for all, arguments, bullying. And there's no teaching of fighting anymore. I think it's a lost art where kids aren't taught to defend themselves with like wrestling or boxing. It's all weapons now.
Well, I think those people that actually physically train they learn a different type of respect. They learn what the pain is. They learn that, hey, they can handle themselves, and their confidence level goes up versus having a false sense of confidence, to where they're trying to use bravado. They don't need to do that anymore. It's more like, dude, you're not worth my time. What can you do to me that hasn't been done to me already in the gym? Get out of my face. You're not worth my time. And I think that's missing with a lot of it, because they just don't do it. When in the late 60s, when we had segregation, and then we went to desegregation in the schools, which I think was an excellent thing. It was needed to be done. Our football coach, the first year that we had where we were desegregated, our football coach had the football team get together. Our first 3 football practices was fighting. He brought us in the gym, put mats on the floor, gave everybody gloves, and everybody fought.
Great equalizer.
For 3 days.
Yep.
And at the end of 3 days, he said, okay, guys, you got it out. We don't need to fight anymore. We're going to be a football team. And if I catch you fighting, you're off the football team. And then very, very few of the football players fought, because we did it all already. Got it out of our system. Done. Now let's go and let's be a football team. They had fights in the school. State police had to come, and almost every day for the first several weeks, for the first couple of years that we had that, because they didn't have it. So we got it out. And so the coaches were smart in that aspect. Just get it out. You're going to do it anyway. So they're get it out under a safe environment. We'll watch you, make sure that you don't get hurt badly. So we did 3 days of fighting for football, and then we started playing football. And I think that, in the martial arts, there are a lot of people that are in the art aspect, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's beautiful. There are guys out there that are far better than I am art-wise. And I look at them, and man, the physical prowess that it takes to do that, the beauty that they have, it is art. Fantastic. I love it. But they can't fight.
Yep.
Now, some of them can. I'm not saying that's all, some of them can. But if you don't go out and actually bang, you're never going to learn the right timing. You're never going to learn the sense of pressure that you have to apply. And you're never going to know how deep down in your heart you have to pull it out of yourself in order to be able to survive. You have to do it. And when you do that, you change your outlook. And so I think those people that actually fight, that actually spar, and even people that don't, they may not become fighters, but they spar, and they spar hard. There's a different level of respect that happens. And it's funny, my wife says that all the time. She says, "You'll have the strangest sense of friendship." And I said, "Yeah." He just blasted me.
I remember seeing that one time about the wrestling thing you guys went to, when she told I remember talking about something. It was funny. I forgot what it was she said. It was funny.
Yeah, and I think that, there's a lot of times they're saying, that part of the problem is that you haven't had your butt busted so that you don't have respect. Yeah, that's part of it. When we get out there and we actually bang some, and we punch each other in the face, and we kick each other in the body, there's a different level of respect that comes out. And then most people that do that, I find, there's always a few, but most people that do that actually bang, they don't run their mouth. They're not trying to prove anything to anybody, because they've already done it. They have nothing to do.
The quiet ones, yeah.
It's that been there, done that, and understand the capabilities of self. This is like the very basis of, it's not about our identity of our capability of violence. It's our capability of restraint from our capability of violence. Like us choosing not to engage in violence, even though we've done a lot of violence and we're fully capable of it. But that power and control of self-control is a superpower. And this is where
the fact that I can punch you in the face or kick you or hit you with a stick does not define who I am.
No.
Yeah.
It's the fact that I'm a good, loving father, that I take care of my family, that I take care of my friends, and that I'm compassionate. That, it's those things that define the person who they are.
Agreed.
Not the fact that I can punch you in the face, but
Well,
the
when
fact
I was,
yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
Well, what I was saying more or less is like the confidence comes from our capability,
Yes.
but more so in our capability to restrain ourselves. But to learn all that confidence and that capability and that restraint, we have to do the thing. We have to be proficient, skilled, and experienced at violence to know the differences between capability of self, confidence, and restraint. And when we don't do it, there's a false sense of security and ego, and this is where a lot of young men default to that disproportionate response of violence and use it as a currency as well.
Yeah. I demand respect.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to respect me. Well, dude, you got to show me that you respect yourself before I respect you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those pants hanging off your ass ain't gonna show you any respect, right? The people wear the fucking pants down their ankles now, like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. It's funny. I had, and I don't brag about this by any means. I had an incident when we were in California back toward the end of August. We had traveled down from Oregon through California. We had stopped in, it doesn't matter where I stopped, instead of saying where it was. Stopped in a town in California. We were at a Walmart. My wife was going in buying some supplies, and there was a Lowe's that was 2 buildings over. So I walked across the parking lot, cut across the alleyway going to get to the Lowe's.
Oh, yeah. I know this story.
Did I tell you about that? And as there's nobody there. It's early in the morning. I'm walking down the alleyway. There's another guy coming from the other side pushing a buggy. And this guy's big. He's 6'3", he's 6'4". He's a big guy. And I'm 5'6". I'm not a big guy at all. And he's pushing his buggy, and I just nodded at him, and he was probably about 15 feet away from me, and he steps away from the buggy and he steps in front of me. And I stopped and I just said, you don't want to do this. It's going to ruin your day. He said, I'm a lot bigger than you. I said, yes, you are. And it's still going to ruin your day. I don't want to do that. And he just looked at me and he said, I believe you're right. And he walked over to his buggy and he walked on. And of course I was, but it's again, I don't want to do anything, but I would have ruined his day. And he may have taken me, but I would have ruined his day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's having the confidence to be able to at least do that versus cowering to him and saying, okay, what do you want?
Yeah.
Some people would give, and maybe I should have, I don't know, but no.
Yeah.
I'm going to ruin your day, or you're going to ruin your day. I made a decision many, many, many years ago. I was actually on the side of the road with a flat tire with a lady with 2 kids, actually 2 ladies, a grandmother, and we had several kids. We were getting away from a hurricane. And I realized at that time when we had left, I had not brought any weapons or anything with me because we left in such a hurry. So a guy pulls up on the side of the road and says, can I help you? And I said, I appreciate the help, but I think I have it and everything. He said, no. We're going to help ourselves to you.
Yeah.
And I said, that'll never happen again, ever. And unfortunately, nothing happened, but there was just an intimidation factor. And just like this gentleman in California, I think it was an intimidation factor. I'm not going to be intimidated by you. And I think some of that is missing with lots of other people, and our kids get intimidated. Parents get intimidated by school officials, and nothing against school officials. My mother and father were school or educators. I think a lot of that is missing in life today. You have to be able to have the confidence to stand up for what you think is right and do what is right.
What is interesting is like there's 2 very distinct phrases that often you hear from men. One is fuck it, because the world has been conquered by fuck it, and the world has been lost because of that phrase. And then there's the other one, never again. Never again will I be a victim. Never again will I be subject to the tyranny of another man. Never again this, that, and the other. But it is amazing that those two phrases have really shaped a lot of the psychology for men in general. But the problem that because what we've been talking about, a life of men that are untested, haven't gone through the physical confidence through contest and combat, so to speak, that they fall too much to the false sense of security and false sense of capability with, fuck it, I can do whatever I want, versus never again. Never again will I fail in such a manner. And as a result of that resignation, they do what is necessary to get to that point. So it's an interesting bit of language and ideology. So
yeah, my life as a man has been defined by some things that happened with me in the military. Sorry. Oof.
Yeah.
You can always go longer and
Mhm.
further than you think you can. You can do more than you think you can. And because of some of the training that I had with some of the stuff that I went through, that was proven evident to me. There were other people that couldn't do it, and that's okay. Nothing against them by any means. So my whole life has been defined upon that with my training, everything. Yeah, you're hurt. Yeah, you're tired. You can go further. Yeah, it sucks to get hit. You can go further. You can do it again. You can get another push-up. You can take another step. You can pick up another 20 pounds and keep on going. And unfortunately, now I'm at the point in my age is that I'm on the downhill side going downhill. I can't do some of the things that I used to do, but my life as a human being and as a man was defined by those things. Get up off the ground and do something. One was puba stick training. I was smallest guy in our unit. They put us in puba stick training. He was 6 foot, 6'2", whatever, 250 pounds, and he beat me into the sand. And the guys down there hollering and screaming, and I went through denial. Number one, said, I can't believe this is happening. They're going to stop it. It didn't stop. Can't believe this is happening. Didn't stop. Kept getting hit. And I probably went 30 seconds. If it went that long, seemed like it was 5 minutes. Because it's a lifetime when you're getting pounded on. And it wasn't until I got angry because it didn't stop that I got up and started fighting back that it stopped. It's not going to stop until you do something about it. And it doesn't matter what it is in life. If you want something done, you get up and do something about it. And if it's something that you can't do, get with someone who can help you do it. Take the step. Go. You want to do something, you want to be something, you have to get up and do it. No one's going to do it for you.
Personal accountability. Yep.
Exactly. You got to get up and do it. The next was I had to do I was trying out for PJs, and at that time, we had to swim underwater as far as you could until you passed out. And now everything inside of your body screams, get up and breathe. Everything. But I kept going. And everything inside says, get up and scream. So the thing that's in my brain was other people did it. If other people did it, I can do it. They're not any better than me. I'm not any better than them. If they can do it, I can do it. Trust your training.
For our audience who don't know, the PJs or the parajumpers are Air Force Special Operations.
Combat Control Pararescue.
Yeah.
So when I woke up, I was on the side of the pool, spitting up water and everything, and I survived and everything was fine. I ended up getting washed out, was unfortunately because I spent most of my time there. I was wearing glasses at the time. I had LASIK surgery years later. You had to have minimum 20/20 vision. So they washed me out because of my vision, which really kind of sucked. I was getting ready to go into the medical aspect of it, and I would have been finished with it. But
hey, but you know what?
That sucked. But it defined a lot of the things that I do in my life with that. And I tried to impress that upon the people that I instruct, that I teach, that I mentor, those people that I've brought up as fighters, is that it doesn't stop until you make it stop. It's not going to quit until you do something about it. And if you want to be a fighter, then you can go further than you think you can. Keep going. And then, fortunately for me, many of the mentors that I've had in the martial arts from there, their attitude was that way too. You know, Ajarn Chai was, if they can do, you can do. And keep going. So that's the biggest thing I try to impress on the people that I mentor, is that get up, do it. If you want that, if that's your goal, then you have to go out and do it. Other people will go with you. You'll always have people on your shirt tails. There'll be shirt tail riders. And there'll be people who, the haters, you know, that will cut you down for it. Don't worry about them. Just do your thing. Keep going. If that's your goal, do it.
It's funny when you're talking about the combat control stuff. I was telling you, you did it. You know, I mean, you tried for it. I have a lot of friends try for that shit, and it's not for the weak. I mean, only the mental and physical you have to go through is something that people will never know. And I've heard about the training and that. You know, I mean, I was in the Air Force, and I never really had interest in going into that. But I did want to be a door gunner. I don't know why in the hell I wanted to pick that. But and I did like get detached with AFSOC at one time being deployed. And those guys are tremendous. The training and the mental, good. So, you know, hats off to you for, you know, going through as far as you did, because 99.9% of the people out there can't even touch that or go through that. I mean, it's just a proven facts.
Yeah, at the time, to get into the program, you had to, I don't remember, you had to run 3 miles in a certain time or whatever. You had to be able to swim a mile or 2 miles or whatever. I don't even remember all of the distances and stuff. So I was able to do those things, you know, but what bit me was my eyesight. So, which kind of sucked.
Vision.
Well, what is amazing with all this is, again, this boils down to the philosophy of the man in the arena. You're choosing to be the man in the ring. You're the one who rose their hand inside the dotted line. You're the one who showed up. You are the father who chose to be around. These definable traits of a positive male figure, you're already winning past like the majority here, because not every man is willing to stand to and do all these things, to have the accountability, the discipline, the reserve, the control, the confidence, the resiliency, because one, it's self-determinant. Two, it's a person, and like all things, it's a personal journey. No, it's a personal journey, and it's a personal decision, and that comes from you going through that, you taking accountability of that, taking your own responsibility and doing that. And this is that, again, that balance that we've ran into, where a lot of people are undisciplined and unwilling to take on the hard work, unwilling to take on the risk. And I mean, circumstances are a different thing, but the fact is, you have to be the one to do it. And because at the end of all things, it's your experience, it's your life, your journey. And you have to be willing and disciplined to do it, even though there's full of failures. And those failures are beautiful and painful, but the fact is, you got to do it. And a lot of people are so risk adverse. Yeah.
Yeah. Failure is where you learn. Failure is where you grow. If you allow yourself to take the challenges and fail and come back, and, you know, the old saying, you get thrown off the horse, get back up on it. Yeah. Just keep going. I was very fortunate. Both of my parents were very positive people. They were educators. My mother was a tremendous optimist. My father was a very positive person as well. And both of their attitudes was go do it. And they were the type of people that said, go outside, pick up a stick, go play, don't come home until it's dark. And so, go experience things, go. And there were a lot of things that I thought I would get in trouble with because of doing something foolish or whatever. And there were times I did, but for the most part, they were like, did you learn something from it? Yeah. So they were really good about those kinds of things. Now, my father was hard. He made us work hard. He was strict disciplinarian, but I appreciated that later on in life because having that wherewithal to keep on going goes a long way.
Yep.
So, Coach Danny, I know we're gonna switch gears. I want to talk about your recent promotion to. I'll let you talk about it in Muay Thai. That is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was nice. I really appreciate. Rank has never been the thing that I was ever after in any of the martial arts that I was training in. Although it was always there and it was always available to work toward, it wasn't my goal and that wasn't part of my journey. I wanted stuff that was efficient and that was effective, that I could use, and then I wanted to have the information and the ability to pass it on to other people. I was very fortunate to have good mentors that were extremely high level that accepted me on pretty much on those terms and continued to train with me and work with me. Ajarn Chai, a number of years ago, came to me and he said, "Sir, you've never tested." And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I can't have that. You have students at a higher rank than you are, and I can't have that. So you need to test." And I was like, "Well, that's not what I've ever been after." And we talked about it some more. And he said, "Well, next time I see you, you're going to test." Well, I put it off and I put it off, and he finally came one day and he said, "No, that's it. You're going to test." And so I tested and I went through the gauntlet of all the kicks and the knees and that you had to do in front of several of my other students. And that was a pretty neat thing. They loved it because they got to see the old man get beat up. So I went through this. So that was several years ago. And then I just continued to train my guys, continued to bring people up, got them advanced in the higher levels of the Thai Boxing Association. They started teaching other people. And then one day Ajarn Chai said, and then he had me in actually in a lot of different seminars that I would go to with him, had me teaching. And then finally one day he said, what level are you? So I'm just an apprentice instructor, sir. And he said, "Oh, no, you can't be an apprentice instructor. You have all these other people that you've been teaching and again, they're higher ranked than you. I can't have that." So he promoted me again. And then he invited me this past year to go to the Oregon camp. And I told him, I said, that same weekend I was supposed to be at a Pekiti camp in New York. And I said, "Well, I can't be both places at once." And so he said, "Oh, can you get out of it?" And I was like, "Can I get out of it?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I want you there." And then, so he told me, he said, "Look, I want to promote you to senior instructor, Ajarn, but in order to do that, you have to come to the camp." Yeah. And so I said, okay. So I contacted John Bill and John Jack and told them that, "Hey, I'm not going to go to the camp. I'm going to go to, if that's okay with you guys." And of course they were, "Yeah, absolutely, go. There'll be other Pekiti camps." So I went to the Oregon camp this year, and I tried at my age to do the whole camp, to do all the drills and all the stuff that was involved with it. But I got about 2.5 days in and I had to back off.
Hey, but you know what? You did it. Like, there's some fucking people out there who wouldn't even do 2 hours.
Yeah. So
you did 2 days. So it's like nothing to be ashamed of at all, man.
No, yeah, but it's an emotional thing for me because I've always, again, I've told you, my thing has been, you can always go further. You can always go more. Mm-hmm. You get to the point where I couldn't go more. And if I did, I probably would not have completed the camp. So I did 2.5 days and did all the drills and did all the rounds and everything that everybody else did. And then finally I said, "Sir, I'm done.
He said, no.
He said, good, take it easy. And then the rest of it was a formality, having to do the ceremonial dance, the white crew, Ramui, in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So I did that and then got the promotion also. It was neat to be so brought forth by your peers and all. So yeah, it was nice. Would never been my goal, but yeah, I think my students appreciated it far more than I did.
That's awesome. That's definitely hats off. Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. And it's nice to be in a company of a lot of really, really good instructors. There's some main headliners that are in that organization, and to be amongst them, it's a good feeling. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Coach Danny, I wouldn't sell yourself short. Like, you're definitely up there. Like,
thank you.
You're not like rubbing elbows like guys are hiring you. You're equal, if not higher, than a lot of those people. So definitely, yeah.
Thank you. I have some good students. So I have good students and good people to be on the train with. So that makes it, if I'm good, it's because of the tremendous instruction that I got from good people. Mm-hmm. And then I'm fortunate enough to have good students that have helped me continue to grow along the way. So it's you don't get there by yourself.
No, iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
sure. Definitely, for sure.
So I deeply appreciate those that have stayed with me because they've helped me grow. Mm-hmm. Teaching makes you grow. Teaching makes you better. Coaching makes you better. So,
I mean, as much as you have the accountability of self, you have the higher accountability to your students. And I mean, it's not just like student instructor thing. It's you have to make that equivalent exchange of loyalty, responsibility, communication, and as they grow, you grow, as you said. But Absolutely. It's not just it's not a tyrannical thing. It's not a superiority thing of you both have to put into this thing because it's a relationship. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think of any of my students being beneath me by any means. Mm-hmm. I don't regulate them to who they can train with or where they can train. I encourage them all the time. Go train with the next guy down the street. You will know right away where you fit in, and you'll find out if you like them, and you'll find out if you get better training with them than with me or whatever. I'm confident with what I have. But a lot of other people say, no, you don't go anywhere. I've always told my students, go. And if you find something better, bring it back.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
Don't bombard that.
Yeah. I had someone, been a couple of years ago now, that said, if someone came in and they were a lot better Wing Chun instructor than you, and their Wing Chun was better than you, what would you do? I said, I would train with them. Said, so you would let them come in your school? I said, well, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's all about continuing growth and continuing learning. I don't have all the answers, and I don't have all knowledge of everything and all skill, but yeah, I'm training with Erik Paulson. Erik Paulson's considerably younger than I am. Why do I go to him? Because he's a lot better than I am with the grapple stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
One of the beautiful titles or acknowledgments that I've ever heard in reference to a student-teacher relationship is not so much the student-teacher aspect, is creating training partners. When the both of you are equal in you're matching each other as to a deficiency and proficiency and making each other equal. So the goal is not to create students. The goal is to create training partners. And that lesson has stuck with me for years. And it's a beautiful acknowledgement of the growth and path of people.
I think the greatest thrill and sense of accomplishment that I get with teaching and coaching is to have someone who is better than I am. Mm-hmm. And that's the ultimate to me, is mm-hmm. to have people that are better than me. And then they turn on and go to somebody else. And I sent one of my students, I've sent a couple of them to other instructors, and they're like, man, these guys are great. So that, that's good on my part. Makes me feel good that I did a good job training them. They're accepted in other schools because their attitudes are right and because they help their schools and their students. So to me, that's the ultimate. Is to make those people that are with me better, not only just as fighters or as martial artists, but as individuals. They're stand-up individuals that have integrity, and that's important.
I mean, it's so much more than the punching and kicking. Like you and I were talking earlier about the difference between an instructor, a teacher, and a coach or a mentor. And then that mentor is that aspect of much more than the punching and kicking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like we talked, I think an instructor is one who presents information. So they give you, and usually for a specific task or a specific set of tasks. And then you have a teacher that's more involved in the theory and more in depth as to what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, how you're doing it. And then a coach is more about the individual himself. And you spread yourself thin when you're coaching because you have lots of individuals. Even when we teach in group classes, I'm teaching a group, but I'm structuring everything to the individual, and you give the individual what they need as they need it so that they can continue to grow. And so sometimes it's heartbreaking because you can spread yourself thin and then you can see the potential that someone has and they don't live up to their potential or they move on. But that's the nature of the beast. Even my children, I wanted them to grow up to where they were self-sustaining. They could take care of their own families. They could provide for their families and they could do it on their own without me being there. It's heartbreaking when they leave, but it's also a joyous occasion that when you see them do it. And so the same thing with a student or a fighter or whatever, that they actually grow. And if they want to move on, then okay, I'm glad that you're moving on. And to see those that continue to go with you and then they open up their own schools or they start training somewhere else or teaching somewhere else and those students end up being good. Man, to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, he said about a coach. Coach, the person too, provides encouragement, and a lot more than instructor does. Instructors there is kind of, I see instructor as a person that they get paid. Just like you said, they show you skills and tasks, but a coach is somebody that's there to mentor you. It could be shit like outside of martial arts, life stuff.
Love that.
Encouraging you, giving you encouragements, in all different aspects of growth and not just kind of, presenting the shit and then just leave walking out, and got your paycheck. When I think of instructors, like you said, I think more of a person that's kind of, not say all of them are like that, but I think more of a person that's, you pay them at the end of class, that's like, okay, we're done. Like you can't walk up to them and be like, hey, am I having this problem with, and they're not that mentorship for the instructor, I think is not there versus as with the coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with fighters, fighters are
finicky.
It's a very mental game. So there's a lot of that's going around in their head, especially when they're preparing for a fight or getting ready to step into a ring. So there's a lot of mental aspect that goes with it. So the after hours, the time that you spend with them, not only physically fit, but mentally fit to be able to go into combat of some type. So you end up having a whole lot more knowing that individual as far as for their heart, their inner spirit, their drive to do things or lack of drive to do things, and how to motivate them if they need to be motivated. One of the things, Greg Nelson is really big on this, and I love the way he says it. You may want to be a fighter, you may want to, and I want you to have it, but you better want it more than me. And as a coach, part of that is also keeping them in that framework to be, so that they want it more.
Coaching fighters has definitely have been one of the most challenging things I've ever done, and more challenging than teaching kids.
Oh yeah. Oh, teaching kids is easy.
Yeah, you just play with them.
Yeah. I it's funny. My father, as I was getting into wanting to teach and everything, that's one of the things he said. If you want to teach, teach adults and be really good, learn to teach kids.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach kids and you can teach adults. And when I first started teaching kids, I was terrified. Although, I brought up my own kids, so I knew how to handle them, but I was terrified to do it with other kids. So I just got on their plane, got down on their ground, and put on a dumb, funny face and made them laugh and cut up and had fun with them, and then started being stricter and stricter. And this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to do it. And then if you can explain things to where you can get kids to do it, teaching adults is easy after that.
Yeah.
And teaching kids is fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Coaching fighters is a different skill because
coaching fighters is totally different.
They are some of the most neurotic people I've ever had to deal with. Oh man. I loved my fighters. I loved every single one of them. But man, a lot of them were a pain in the ass to deal with.
But a lot of them have anger issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have some type of confidence issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have some type of traumatic mental issues of some type behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of what makes them a fighter.
Oh, absolutely.
It's there, and so you have to deal with all of that as well.
Oh, it's like people going into the military. There's always something more than what's presented to them in uniform.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually what partially encourages them to go into the military or go into law enforcement and those kind of fields, because there's something in them that is driving them to it. So
yeah, sure. Guys, I'm about to head out here, but I want to thank Coach Danny for coming on, and Coach Kurt's going to take it over from here and then talk about what's coming up for November. So have a good night, Coach Danny. Everybody out there, have a good night.
Thank you, Brian. Good to see you.
We'll talk to you later.
See you
later.
Awesome. So going back a little bit about coaching, because we are kind of alluding to it anyways, but I try to make it a point to ask this question of coaches, because every coach deals with this, every instructor deals with this, but specifically coaches, because the individual needs of their fighters, the individual relationship you have with your fighters, you get to know them, you get to know their truths, you sometimes take on the burden. So I ask, and this is regards to compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma, and the very simplest form is taking on their emotions, taking on their traumas, taking on the weight of their knowledge and circumstance, and how it can result into burnout. Because like you said, coaching, you can spread yourself pretty thin.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me is that I'm compassionate toward them with that, but I don't take it on. Because that's when you really get down to it, it's their problem. It's not mine. So it's to be compassionate and understand where they're coming from and why it's being driven there. Listen to them, but then I don't carry it with me, because if you try to carry it, you're carrying someone else's burdens, and that will burn you out drastically. Yes,
that's what happened to me.
And I say that after having been there. Because when you spend that much time with an individual that is putting that much of their passion into something, and you're putting your passion into it as well, there is a relationship that happens under that trauma, because when you're fighting, it's trauma. The trauma is both emotional and physical, and so it can be wearing. And so I've been there where I was as exhausted mentally as what the fighters were physically, because of going through those kinds of things. And so and again, dealing with my father, going back to him as an educator and someone who also had a minor in psychology, talking with him about it and how to handle that. And I got a lot of from him. This is what I would do if I were you, and learning how to let go of that, because that's their problem, not yours. So you can be compassionate about it, and you can be there for them, and you can be a sounding board for them. What I tried to do early was to tell people how to fix their problems. Well, you can't you can't do that. That's just dumb, stupid, and frustrating for everybody all the way around. So all I could do is listen to them. And then it was like, okay, so what do you think you need to do to be able to take care of that? I will back you up one way or the other. But you're going to have to take upon yourself that responsibility, not me. But I will be here to support you. And I will support you in any way that I can. So when I got to that point, it was a lot easier to just let that go and not have to carry it with you. And it didn't take me long, because it's exhausting. The next thing is that you don't talk about anybody to anybody else.
Yes.
Those things that are given to you in confidence, that's given to you in confidence. And you just try to let that go as much as possible. So I would take notes so I could remember. But then I had a drawer that I locked my notes in so that people couldn't see my notes or anything. But I would say the biggest thing is don't talk to anybody else about anything that anybody gives you in confidence, ever, about anything. Because a lot of times those things come out, that's their heart. They're letting things go, and they don't need to have that on the street, or they don't need to have an opponent or even someone else know anything about it. So don't ever say anything.
It's their story to tell when they want to tell it.
Absolutely.
So do you communicate these boundaries ahead of time, or is this a gradual thing as it occurs?
No, it's usually pretty gradual, because taking on a fighter is not like it's not like you know them right away. And even then, when you as you start to know somebody, the longer that you're with them, there's changes that happen. Yeah. So my thing has always been, I'll listen to you. And then if there's something come up that it'll never go past this, or that's something that you need to go talk to someone else about. I'm not all knowing. And then so if someone has a really major problem, then, this is beyond the scope of me. I will help you find somebody if you need somebody to have more help with or whatever. And I would do that. But it's you have to learn to stay in your lane as well.
Yeah. Then also, like, communicating the time and sacrifice. Sacrifice is a big deal, because that time and sacrifice away from family, away from your children, to meet the needs of your athletes. Too often, I have found that athletes just don't know, or because, like I said, a lot of them are neurotic and selfish. They just don't think about it, and showing appreciation to your coaches for their time and sacrifice, not just the financial aspect, but the time away from their family, is an incredibly important thing that fighters need to know. And on top of all that, I think coaches need more to explain that up front to their fighters, of saying, hey, if I'm taking you on as a fighter, know that there's a lot of work and there's a lot of sacrifice. It's not your sacrifice, it's my sacrifice of time and away from my family.
So one of my willing processes with fighters is, so you want to fight? Yes. You want to fight for me? Good. I don't care how long you've been fighting. I don't care how long you've not been fighting, whatever. If you want to fight, when you come in that door, you're going to go and you're going to get warmed up. You're going to run 2 miles. You're going to come back and you do 1,000 kicks. Then we're going to start training. Every time you walk in that door until I tell you no longer to do 1,000 kicks. And you'd be surprised how many of them drop off real quick. I'm not going to spend the time doing that. Well, then you're not telling me that you really want this. And
don't waste my time and put in the work.
Right. You have to put in the work, and the work is going to be hard and grueling. And there are a lot of people that say, 1,000 kicks, what good does that do? So, well, it toughens the shins, it densens the bones, it makes the core stronger, it makes your kicking much, much stronger. You'll learn to relax, and you'll learn the discipline that it takes in order to be able to do it. Putting it in your brain, this is what I'm going to do. And now we're going to start training. And then once we start training doesn't stop until I say it's over with. So the burnouts that happen at the end of the fight session, because a fight is 3 minutes or 5 minutes of just go, relax a few seconds, go, relax a few seconds, go. And
marathon sprinting. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. It's like going out for a run. We're going to run for 5 miles. You're going to run a half mile. You're going to sprint. You're going to run a quarter of a mile. You're going to sprint. You're going to run a quarter mile. You're going to sprint. That's fighting for 5 minutes. So you have to have the mental discipline. You have to have the physical discipline. You have to have the conditioning, and you have to have the heart to do that.
Yep.
And the way that you find out if you can do it is you got to go out and do it.
Yep. And again, going back to that confidence and resiliency comes from doing the thing.
Absolutely.
Go through the process and complete the thing. But again, everybody wants to do, a lot of people want to do it, but very few people actually want to put in the work. Just like anything else in this world, very few people want to put in the work. Because motivation doesn't mean you're going to make it.
Nope. And it is, and if you want it, then you're going to have to want it more than I do. I've seen a lot of men cry, seen a lot of fighters cry, and I would venture to say probably almost everyone has ever fought for me has cried at one time or another within the training, because it is an emotional thing when you put your heart and passion into it. And if you're not putting that much into it, then you're really never going to be a really good fighter. You will never truly know yourself until you put that much of yourself into it. And I think that's part of what my job is to help you find out for you where your wall is. And if you get to that wall, can you get through it? Can you get to the other side? Because when you get to the other side, you'll be, man, I made it. Now you've pushed the boundary of the wall further out. You can go further. You can do more. You can do more. You can take more punches.
That's the resiliency piece. You got to know the difference between pain, injury, and discomfort. The only way you're going to do it is by doing it. And that part is so missing. And we keep coming back to this theme, but that part is so intrinsically missing from our society and our culture that we are hitting this jump off point of we could turn it around or we can just nosedive. And it seems like we're nosediving because I feel, or as I understand, I'm approaching 40. And I find that I'm the last generation that actually went outside and played until the lights went out or until the lights came on. I mean, I was before the internet, before MySpace. I remember what a dial phone connected to the wall was. I mean, I remember because I grew up with all these things, but I also grew up fighting and playing outside until the lights came on. And now looking at my own children, I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old, and it's just like, the risk of like helicopter parenting is definitely there, but it's still like trying to build that trust and resiliency is a tricky balance. And I understand now as a father that is a scary thing, but you have to have the confidence and the trust.
They need to be able to fall down, scrape their knees, bump their elbows. If they break a bone, they break a bone. You go to them, you hug them, you tell them you love them. We're going to take care of it. You're going to be fine. You're passionate to it, but you don't stop them from doing it.
No, you got to let them do it. You got to let them do it.
Yes.
And that is so lacking in a lot of cases. It's lacking. I know in small groups and in a lot of instances it's still there, but I see it often. I saw it when I was teaching, and especially when I was teaching in the school district, and especially like with a lot of the kids that came to me that are at-risk youth and came by way of case files through CPS and the behavioral health community. It's just like they're lacking that the parental structure and to do these things, to actually have this foundation, to have this base of confidence and trust and care that they could actually go be resilient because they had that home base of safety there for them.
I think that, and this is not my level of expertise, so it's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The demise of the family, the demise of the father being in the home,
mm-hmm.
kids growing up with just their mom, and there's nothing wrong with moms by any means. So
Nope.
Not trying to make that at all. Moms are very, very important, and those unfortunately that end up being single parents, that's a
mm-hmm.
tough job.
Mm-hmm.
But not having a male in the home, that's an important aspect, and kids are growing up without having the father influence,
mm-hmm.
and being tough and having tough love, physical tough love. I'm not talking about spanking or beating them or anything. I'm talking about just being, and men being men.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the toxic male. Toxicity is when a male is not there.
Yeah.
You need both.
I mean, there's that consistent balance between toxic masculinity, absenteeism, and generational trauma.
Yes.
The way we correct those courses is two-parent homes. Men need to be men. Men need to be better men than they were before and the generations before. But that comes from a lot of work. They have to be present enough to do the work, willing to do the work, disciplined, and actually do the damn thing.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
They got to be responsible for what they do.
Mm-hmm.
You marry a lady, be responsible to her.
Mm-hmm.
You take a vow, stand by your vow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy. One of the things, and this all goes back to coaching as well. You're responsible. Take the responsibility. When you take a vow, you said that you're going to be with this woman for the rest of your life.
It's loyalty. It's going back to a previous conversation.
There's your devotion. There's your commitment. You got to be committed to it. What is commitment? You ever heard of the chicken and the pig? The difference between being involved and being committed?
Mm-hmm.
The chicken laid the egg. He was involved. The pig lost its legs for the ham and the bacon. That's commitment.
Okay, that's a good one.
It's there's a difference, and there's pain in commitment,
mm-hmm.
and it's not easy. Sometimes, and again, I don't want to really get back off on chasing rabbits or anything, but people get involved in relationships and they love. Love is an emotion. Emotion will always override logic. Do you like her? Do you like him? Is he really your best friend? Where's the commitment? Because there's a time that love's not going to be there. So, and if you're committed, you work through it and you do the best that you can to work through it.
And that's analogous to fighting. You may like it,
Absolutely.
But are you committed to it?
Are you committed to it?
And that's the reframing. Yeah.
People like the idea of being a fighter until they get punched or kicked.
Mm-hmm.
I came up boxing. Being punched in the face is a big deal. Shotokan thought I was a pretty good kicker. The first time I got kicked by a Muay Thai kicker.
Oh yeah, it's a different story. It's a religious experience, to put it best.
I couldn't walk for 2 days, Yeah, I want that. I want to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do to get to be able to do that?
Put in the work. Be committed.
Yeah, you put in the work. You put in the time. If that's your goal, do it. But commitment is so important. Integrity. You say you're going to do something, do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
What is real integrity? Real integrity is when you find it's what you do when nobody else is looking and there's no goal, no gain for you in the goal, that you do the right thing. That's integrity. There's a lot of people that don't have integrity anymore.
Yep.
So there's no commitment, there's no integrity, there's no willingness to push through and to continue. It's a weakening of the society.
So, since we plummeted to the dark end, how do you think we can get out of that? How can we move forward so we can get back on this path?
Well, the thing that I do with my people is I encourage them to do whatever it is they want to do it to the best of their ability. I will help you and support you along the way. You want to be a good kicker? We're going to kick. You want to be a good puncher? We're going to punch. You want to be good on the ground? We're going to get on the ground and do groundwork. That's, where's your commitment to doing it? That's the big thing. So we do martial arts and we do physical things. We help some people on the art side. We help some people on the mental and physical side. And then we have fighters that actually learn to fight, and their mental being is completely different from everybody else's.
Yep.
So,
because of the work.
I think that we just keep on working and keep doing the things that we do. As instructors, part of the problem, I think, for some instructors is that they have to pay their bills, and that's important. School owners is important, but you have to have integrity toward the art. You have integrity toward what you present to people and what you give to them. And if someone is not up to the level of competence for whatever it is that you set forth for your rankings or whatever, then don't give them the rank.
Yep.
Make them work for it, make them earn it. You don't give things. There's too many participation trophies and stuff. I didn't get participation trophies. You just happen to be one who's also there.
Yep.
If you want to get better, then you work harder and get better. And I think that needs to be incorporated into our society again. That's all.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, the experiences are great, but you learn more from the losses, but you also take the leadership by doing the thing, succeeding, because you need to have, as much as you need the failures, often you need more failures to succeed, because it makes that success all that more poignant. But at some point, you got to win, but you just can't be given it to you. You have to work your way through it. And again, this boils back to this issue of resiliency comes at the behest of adversity, and you have to put in the work to make it through. And that's really what it boils down to, is people have to do the work.
Yep. So. Yep. Some people don't want to, unfortunately. Nope. But if you want to get anywhere in life, with anything, you've got to put in the time in there. Someone asked me at another interview that I had done, said, what do you think is the most important thing to make a good martial artist? And that right there, you have to put in the time doing the thing. We have a saying with some of our guys, we're going to go do the damn thing. You just got to do the damn thing. That's it.
Absolutely.
In the time. And some people look at time as being years, and it's like, okay, how often do you train? 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week? What do you do at home when you leave class? Do you do any of the exercises at class? Do you do anything to help strengthen you or get better at what you're doing at home? Do you do road work? Do you do skipping? Do you come in and do extra stuff? When the class is over with, do you get back on the mats and roll with somebody else? Put in the extra time. And then people come in, and there's other people that come in and train, and you see them every single day, and they start advancing and growing. And other people say, why are they advancing so much? So, well,
because they put in the work.
They're training 5 times a week. You're coming in twice a week.
Yep.
After a month's time, they're ahead of you. Yep. You got to put in the time.
And this goes, swapping back to other martial arts, in the case of, there's a lot of concepts. There's a lot of people who do the art. There's a lot of people who do the theory and do the intellectual pursuit. And there's the idea that they can do the thing, which they physically can do something. They can physically do many athletic things. But when it comes crossing over to fighting, you have to fight to be able to fight. And there's a lot of people within the community, I'm going to say the FMA community, because we're both very involved with the FMA community, that there's a distinction between a lot of the concept and creativity versus the combative. And the way to bridge that gap is actually to fight. And I would encourage our collective community to go fight. You don't have to do full-on dog. do full on Dog Brothers, go do full contact fighting, go do the professional stuff if you can, but at least get in the ring, put some gloves on, and actually fight it out, figure it out.
You at least have to spar
Mm-hmm.
and spar with some intent.
Yep.
You know, now there's technical sparring where you can spar with speed and not lots of power. So you're still learning good timing because you have to go with speed, and the speed needs to be proper for whatever individual that you're working with.
Yep.
You know, so if it's like taking a 6-year-old and saying, I'm going to teach them how to catch a baseball. I'm not going to swing the baseball as hard as fast as I can. The speed has to be appropriate for them.
Yep.
Same thing with sparring and fighting. It has to be appropriate to the individual. If I just go out and start swinging a stick at them, or I punch it as fast and as hard as I can, they're not going to learn anything. They're just going to get beat up, and that doesn't do any good at all. But they have to spar in order to learn the timing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of theoretical martial artists.
Mm-hmm.
They're great at drills. They're great at forms.
Mm-hmm.
They're great at doing it on a nice soft mat. You got to get out and sling, plain and simple.
Well, you need the consequence. You need the actual consequences from chaos and combat to actually be good at combative stuff.
Well, and even then, you do really, really well with one person. Mm-hmm. The next person that you go up to, you are now a theoretical martial artist again. Mm-hmm. Because in theory, you can pull it off. You may not do it with that person.
Yep.
In theory, you can make those hits. Until you actually do it with it, it's still a theory. And I think that mindset has to be that I'm going to go and prove it again. I'm going to go prove it again and prove it again.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do that, then all you are is a theoretical martial artist, and you're really good at drilling, and that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. And there are people, I mean, I have lots of students that's all they'll ever be, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's all they want.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. But if you want to be, you're not learning to fight. You're not learning self-defense. Mm-hmm. You're learning self-defense moves. You're learning fighting moves, but you're not learning how to fight.
Yeah,
and you out there and do it.
And not to confuse and conflate the fact of there is a difference between we do things for combat and personal protection and warfare versus things that we like. They're completely different things. Because, like, I like Kung Fu. I like Wushu. I like certain parts of FMA. I do that purely for the love, the intellectual, the artistic expression. I don't do it for combat. There's stuff that I do specifically for combat, however. And having the clear distinction between the two and what I'm going to use and what is appropriate is very important. There's too often that, again, with the theoreticists, that try to make something that they love that's artistic work for something that it clearly doesn't work, or they can't make it work.
Right. Well, I think that learning good body mechanics through the artistic aspect is excellent. And you're going to use good body mechanics when you're fighting, but how you apply them may not be exactly the same way.
Yep.
And you know, movement is movement. Good movement is good movement. Good body mechanics is good body mechanics. I don't care what endeavor it is that you're doing, whether you're competing in lifting weights or if you're competing in punching somebody in the face. If you don't have the proper body mechanics, then you're not going to be effective with it or efficient with it. So learning the art aspect can be a very, very important part of your learning and your journey. But it's not the same as fighting and actually punching somebody in the face or actually getting punched or kicked. And then those people that can punch and can kick well doesn't mean that you're going to be able to stop someone taking you down.
Nope.
That's another aspect of the game. And then once you get on the ground, the footwork that you have to use, the body mechanics that you have to use on the ground is different. So unless you get in that environment and do it, yeah, you can talk a good game, and it's good in theory, but until you actually get out there and do it and prove it every single time, it's just a theoretical thing. You know, we do it all the time. In theory, Mike Tyson should have won all of his fights. In theory, someone else should have won their fights. It doesn't happen. You know, you got to get out there and do it.
Yep. And this is where I consistently come back to this principle that, or the statement that fighting is simple because the principles of fighting are universal. So fighting is simple, but it's not easy because of violence and the willingness to use violence. And that's that part about you got to fight to figure it out. So,
yeah.
Well. So, Coach Dan, we've been at this for an hour and a half, actually, technically 2 hours, because you and I jumped on a little before. Do you have anything in closing you want to share out with the community? Anything coming up, or?
Yeah, the only thing I have a Wing Chun camp that I'm going to be doing in January in Newberry, Louisiana.
Yep.
I have Sifu Harun Raja, who's out of South Carolina, who's going to be coming in as a guest instructor with me. And then in March, we're going to be doing a Pekiti-Tirsia International Spring Camp.
Nice.
And anybody that's interested in doing that, please come in. It's on my Facebook page. I do have a website, but it's really defunct. I don't do very much with it. I had one of my students that wanted to build a web page for me, so he did. And I appreciate Josh having done that, but that's really not my thing. But I'm on Facebook and on Instagram. You can pick up some of the stuff with that. If you have any questions about anything, I'd be love to do it. I do seminars. I do private lessons, do workshops. Be glad to come in and help in any way that I can with anybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir, for one. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you for, and on top of all that, your continued service as a mentor, as a coach, and as a leader in the martial arts, not just Filipino martial arts, but just in general. And thank you also for spending the time to share some wisdom, knowledge with me today. Thank you for the gift of your time. So
I appreciate you allowing me to come on and being a part of it. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Well, today was a beautiful conversation. I'm going to drop you down and do our outro. And yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out.
Thanks. Bye.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. So not as long as my other podcast. Short and sweet and to the point, but we covered a lot of great ground. Brian and I are putting together our list for November. If you would like or have a suggestion for somebody to come on the show, just shoot him or me a message on Facebook or wherever, and we can make that happen. And again, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you guys later. Thanks so much.